This research seeks to answer the question, how has the Great Commission contributed to colonization around the world? Missionaries have been traveling throughout the world to spread the gospel of the Bible for hundreds of years, but the world has also seen harm come to underdeveloped countries as a result of foreign interventions. Missionaries flock to the field in order to improve the lives of the people they meet. However, they often do more harm than good, which this presentation will explore through various examples of real-life missionaries. If the goal of a missionary is to support and improve the lives of the people they encounter, then their impact on the local community should be objectively positive. Through analysis of several case studies, this presentation will prove that this is often not the case. First, we need to define what the Great Commission is. The Great Commission comes from Matthew 28:19, where Jesus instructs his disciples to go out into the world and make disciples of the nations, essentially proselytizing to the world. What is not defined, however, is exactly who the disciples are supposed to reach. Jesus could have meant the entire world, or he could have meant the neighboring nations with whom they already had relationships, or the communities from which the disciples came. A look into the original text of this declaration is beyond the scope of this presentation, which simply seeks to determine the impact of the Great Commission on various communities around the world. It is also important to discuss the difference between colonization and colonialism, as these words are sometimes used interchangeably. The University of Saskatchewan defines colonization as the action or process of settling among and establishing control over the indigenous people of an area. They define colonialism as the policy or practice of acquiring full or partial political control over another country, occupying it with settlers, and exploiting it economically. In short, colonialism seeks political and economic control, while colonization only seeks physical control. Thus, we will be discussing colonization throughout the duration of this presentation. As we move through this presentation, we will learn that not every interaction between a missionary and the indigenous people was negative. Specifically, in the arts and expression breadth area, we will see how William Carey's printing presses strengthened the Baduri language. However, in the social and civic breadth area, we can see how missionaries and other non-government organizations, or NGOs, can destroy a local economy, as they did in Haiti. In the science and description breadth area, we will see how promoting new technologies can change a people for the worse and undermine their culture and beliefs. Finally, in the value and meaning breadth area, we see the promotion of the idea that West is best, thereby asserting that an indigenous group is less valuable than their missionary and often white counterpart. One of the first Bengali presses was established by missionaries in the late 1700s. William Carey, who wrote the first sort of call to missionaries and helped to establish the current missionary system with stateside support, used this printing press to create a written Baduri language, which was only oral at the time. They printed New Testaments as pictured here, as well as various books on history and linguistics. Interestingly, it was this promotion of written language and solidification of the language and local vernacular culture that eventually gave the Bengalis the power to overcome their colonizers. The Auguste Savonnerie was a profitable company with dedicated employees who manufactured a biodegradable soap in Haiti. In addition to providing a living wage for their employees, the Savonnerie was also involved in their community and in funding a school for children who wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity. In 2010, a cholera outbreak occurred in Haiti. It was later discovered that the United Nations troops were likely the cause of this deadly outbreak. In response, donations of soap flooded the market. These donations were eventually stolen and sold at a cost lower than what the Savonnerie could sell their soaps for, and the Auguste Savonnerie was forced to close its doors. Thus, a source of affordable and biodegradable soap was lost, as well as their support in the local community. The Auguste Savonnerie is just one example when an influx of donated materials from non-government organizations tanked a local economy and closed a business that was invested in the community beyond the current crisis or agenda. Whether or not an indigenous people group intends to accept the gospel message of the missionaries, their culture is forced to interact with the missionaries' opposing culture. The Sawana people in Africa did reject the missionaries' message, however their culture, beliefs, and priorities were forever changed. As the missionaries introduced technologies, like the plow and the clock, and challenged their beliefs about things like rainmaking, the way they perceived the world around them was altered. The Samoana began valuing wealth and the accumulation of goods in a way they never had before. This drew them and other black Africans into a capitalist system they had previously never navigated. When missionaries arrive in a new area, they often set up schools to teach local children and adults to read and write, and use it as a vessel to share Christianity. Through the imposition of the missionaries' native language, dress, and social rules, indigenous people often get the message that West is best. In Samoa during the 1800s, missionaries introduced the British game of cricket. To Samoans, recreation was an important part of social and political life. Evangelical missionaries, however, found this behavior to be frivolous and distracting, going so far as to pass laws restricting the game of kirikiti, a Samoan game loosely based on cricket, in 1888. Missionaries actively worked against the social culture of Samoans, devaluing their culture and the activities that brought meaning and unity to their lives. We come back to the question, how has the Great Commission influenced colonization around the world? In short, the influence of a missionary on the native communities they reach is never all good or all bad. But it is important to remember that there are two sides to the interaction. Many missionaries leave the field feeling they have left a meaningful impression on the world and fulfilled their life's calling. The real test of that statement, however, lies in the real-life impact they have left on the native community they sought to reach. In some cases, missionaries leave a community with a stronger sense of community and skills to lead a better life, as with the Bengalis. But there are many instances that leave a community feeling undermined as missionaries seek to change the very fabric of the social structure, as happened with the Samoans. While there are examples of Christian colonization that have strengthened a community, in most cases the relationship between missionary and the colonized undermines the culture and promotes westernization.